Tonight, as the modern world fades into silence around you, we'll journey deep into the lush jungles of ancient Mexico to uncover one of archaeology's most captivating mysteries. In the shadow of majestic pyramids and beneath centuries of earth and stone lies the tomb of the Red Queen of Palenque, a Maya royal whose burial chamber, drenched in brilliant cinnabar, has captivated scholars and dreamers alike. As you settle in for sleep, allow yourself to be transported to a world of jade masks, royal intrigue, and treasures that remained hidden for over 1,000 years. Dim your lights, find that perfect, comfortable position, and join me on this peaceful exploration of Maya royalty, forgotten riches, and one of history's most fascinating enigmas. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The story begins in the humid depths of the Chiapas jungle in southern Mexico, where the ancient Maya city of Palenque sleeps beneath a canopy of emerald green. Moss-covered stone structures rise from the forest floor, their worn steps and crumbling facades whispering stories from a time long past. Palenque is not the largest of Maya cities, but it is perhaps one of the most elegant, known for its refined architecture and the sophisticated artistry of its sculptures and inscriptions. Imagine yourself walking through this site on a misty morning, the tropical air heavy with moisture, birdsong echoing through the trees. Monkeys chatter in the distance as sunlight filters through the leaves, creating dappled patterns on the limestone pathways. The city was once known as La Cama, place of great waters, named for the natural springs and streams that crisscross the terrain, their gentle burbling creating a soothing soundtrack to our exploration. At the heart of Palenque stands the Temple of the Inscriptions, a 9-level stepped pyramid rising dramatically against the sky. This imposing structure has long been famous in archaeological circles, for in 1952, the Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luye made an extraordinary discovery here. After noticing unusual holes in a stone slab on the temple floor, Ruiz and his team spent 4 years carefully removing rubble from a hidden stairway that descended deep into the pyramid's core. At the bottom of this staircase, sealed for over 1,000 years, they found a vaulted chamber containing an elaborately carved sarcophagus. Inside lay the remains of a ruler now known to be Kinig Janab Pakal, or Pakal the Great, the most renowned king of Palenque, who reigned for an astonishing 68 years, from 615 to 683 CE. His tomb, with its magnificent carved sarcophagus lid depicting the king's journey to the underworld, became one of the most famous discoveries in Maya archaeology. But tonight, our story focuses not on King Pakal, but on another royal figure whose discovery decades later would add a new chapter to our understanding of Maya civilization, the mysterious Red Queen. The year was 1994. While Pakal's tomb had long been a focus of study and tourism, archaeologists continued to investigate other structures at Palenque, including a more modest pyramid adjacent to the Temple of the Inscriptions, known simply as Temple. A Mexican archaeological team led by Fanny Lope Jimenez was conducting survey work at this smaller temple, not expecting to find anything as significant as what had been discovered next door. As they explored the temple, the team noticed anomalies in the structure, hints that there might be something hidden beneath the pyramid floor. Carefully, methodically, they began to investigate, eventually discovering a hidden stairway similar to the one that had led to Pakal's tomb decades earlier. Heart rates quickened as the archaeologists carefully descended into the unknown. At the bottom of the stairway, they found a small antechamber and a sealed door. When they broke through, they entered a space that had remained untouched for 13 centuries, a small vaulted tomb chamber. Unlike Pakal's larger and more elaborate burial chamber, this one was relatively modest in size, measuring just over 3 meters long, 2.5 meters wide, and 4 meters high. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in the vividness of what it contained. Inside the chamber sat a plain limestone sarcophagus, no elaborate carvings like those that adorned Pakal's final resting place. But when the archaeologists carefully lifted the heavy stone lid, they were met with an extraordinary sight. The interior of the sarcophagus was entirely covered with a brilliant red powder cinnabar, a mineral form of mercury sulfide that the Maya considered extremely precious and sacred. And within this crimson blanket lay the remains of a person analysis would later confirm it was a woman who had died around 1,300 years ago. Her bones were stained the same vibrant red as the powder that surrounded them. The team had discovered what would come to be known as the Red Queen of Palenque. Try to imagine that moment of discovery. The archaeologists, their faces illuminated by flashlights in the darkness of the burial chamber, carefully brushing away the red dust to reveal human remains that had lain undisturbed since the height of Maya civilization. The air, still and heavy with the weight of centuries, perhaps carrying a faint metallic scent from the cinnabar that coated every surface. The sense of connection across time, of bearing witness to the final resting place of someone who had been laid to rest with such care and ceremony. The red powder that gave the queen her nickname was not merely decorative. Cinnabar was highly valued in Maya culture, associated with blood and life force. Its use in such quantities signified the tremendous importance of the person buried in this tomb. The Maya believed that red was the color of the east, associated with birth and renewal. By covering the queen's remains in this vibrant substance, they were perhaps preparing her for rebirth in the afterlife. But the cinnabar was just the beginning of the tomb's treasures. As archaeologists carefully documented and removed the red-stained remains, they discovered that the queen had been buried with an impressive array of jade ornaments. A mask made of jade pieces had been placed over her face, not a single solid piece like some Maya masks, but a mosaic of small jade tiles that once created the image of a human face, now collapsed inward with the decomposition of the soft tissues it once covered. Around her neck, wrists and ankles were found jade beads and ornaments, hundreds of them, formed into elaborate necklaces, bracelets, and anklets. Jade ear flares, once worn in greatly enlarged earlobes as a sign of status and beauty, were positioned where her ears would have been. A jade figurine had been placed in her mouth, perhaps an offering to sustain her in the afterlife, or a symbol of rebirth. For the Maya, jade was more precious than gold. The green stone represented water, fertility, and life itself. The quality and quantity of jade found in the Red Queen's tomb spoke volumes about her status. Only the highest elites of Maya society would be buried with such treasures. This was clearly no ordinary woman, but someone of tremendous importance to the people of Palenque. As you rest comfortably now, perhaps feeling the weight of your body sinking deeper into your bed or chair, let's consider who this mysterious Red Queen might have been. Unlike Pakal's tomb, with its elaborate inscriptions naming the king and detailing his lineage and accomplishments, the Red Queen's burial chamber contained no identifying texts. Her identity was not meant to be preserved through words, but through the symbolism of her burial goods and the sacred red powder that embraced her remains. The most compelling theory, based on the tomb's location and dating, is that the Red Queen was Ixtazakbu Aja, the wife of Pakal the Great. Historical records from Palenque tell us that Sazakbu Aja was a noble woman from another Maya city who married Pakal and bore him at least 3 sons, including his successor Kinich Khan Balam. The proximity of the Red Queen's tomb to Pakal's final resting place suggests a close relationship between the two. Analysis of the remains indicates that the Red Queen was a woman who died in her 50s or 60s, which aligns with what we might expect for Tsazakbu Aja based on historical records. Furthermore, the elaborateness of the burial and the quality of the jade artifacts suggest someone of the highest royal status. A queen consort would certainly qualify. However, not all scholars agree with this identification. Some have suggested that the Red Queen might have been Yol Iknal, a powerful queen who ruled Palenque in her own right from 583 to 604 CE, or perhaps Sak Kuk, Pakal's mother, who served as a regent before he came of age. Without inscriptions naming the tomb's occupant, we may never know with absolute certainty who the Red Queen was. The mystery of her identity adds a certain poignancy to her story. Here was someone so significant that they were buried with tremendous wealth and ritual importance near one of Palenque's most sacred temples. Yet their name was not recorded for posterity in the tomb itself. Perhaps it was assumed that everyone would know who she was, or perhaps her identity was deliberately left ambiguous as part of the burial ritual. As the night deepens around you, and perhaps sleep begins to feel closer, let's imagine what life might have been like for the Red Queen during her time on Earth. If she was indeed Pakal's wife, exquisite, she would have lived during Palenque's golden age, when the city-state was at its most powerful and prosperous. The Maya world of the 7th century CE was a complex tapestry of competing city-states, each with its own ruling dynasty, locked in ever-shifting alliances and conflicts. Palenque had suffered defeats earlier in its history, but under Pakal's long reign, it experienced a renaissance, with ambitious building projects and successful military campaigns that expanded its influence. As queen consort, Tzizakbu Ajah would have played crucial roles, both political and ceremonial. Royal marriages in the Maya world were diplomatic arrangements, cementing alliances between different cities. As someone from outside Palenque originally, she would have served as a living link between her husband's kingdom and her birth city, helping to maintain peaceful relations between the two. In daily life, she would have lived in palace compounds of surprising sophistication. Maya royal architecture featured vaulted ceilings, multiple rooms arranged around central courtyards, and elaborate stucco decorations painted in vibrant colors. While popular imagination often pictures ancient peoples living in primitive conditions, archaeological evidence shows that Maya royalty enjoyed considerable comfort and luxury. The queen's days would have been filled with a variety of activities. She likely oversaw palace household operations, which would have included numerous servants and specialists. She would have participated in important religious ceremonies. The Maya rulers were considered semi-divine, with special responsibilities to communicate with the gods through rituals, including bloodletting, burning of incense, and elaborate dances. As the mother of future kings, her role in raising and educating her sons would have been of paramount importance to the dynasty's continuation. Maya noble children were trained from an early age in the complex writing system, mathematical concepts, religious knowledge, and the proper deportment expected of royalty. Appearance was important for Maya nobility, and the queen would have embraced the period's standards of beauty. The Maya valued a distinctive profile, with a sloping forehead, often achieved by binding the skulls of noble infants. They adorned their teeth with jade inlays, and practiced body painting for ceremonial occasions. Elaborate clothing made from the finest cotton, decorated with embroidery, featherwork, and jade ornaments, would have distinguished royalty from commoners. Imagine the Red Queen participating in a royal ceremony at Palenque. She would emerge from the palace wearing a huipil, a traditional woven blouse of the finest white cotton embroidered with symbols of divine kingship and fertility. Jade jewelry would adorn her ears, neck, wrists, and ankles, perhaps the very same pieces that would later accompany her to the grave. Her hair would be elaborately arranged, possibly with woven elements or decorative pins. Body paint in significant colors and patterns might adorn her face and exposed skin. As she walked in procession with her husband and sons through the city center toward the Temple of the Inscriptions, common people would line the path, eyes downcast in respect. Musicians would play drums, rattles, and flutes, creating a rhythmic accompaniment to the ceremony. Incense burners would release copal smoke, the sweet, resinous scent rising to the heavens as an offering to the gods. At the temple, the royal family would begin the arduous climb up the steep pyramid steps. For public ceremonies, this ascent was symbolic as well as physical mayat, a journey from the earthly realm toward the celestial domain of the gods. At the top, priests would await them, ready to begin rituals that might include offerings of food, precious objects, and even the ruler's own blood, drawn from the tongue, earlobes, or other body parts, as the ultimate sacred gift to the divinities who sustained the world. Throughout such ceremonies, the queen would maintain perfect composure, embodying the dignity and divine connection of the royal line. Her presence would lend legitimacy to her husband's rule and promise continuation of the dynasty through her sons. The elaborate jade regalia she wore, so similar to what would eventually accompany her in death, served not as mere decoration, but as physical manifestations of her royal authority and spiritual power. As the Red Queen moved through her life at Palenque, she would have been surrounded by the same buildings we now see as ruins, but in her time, these structures were not the weathered gray stone we see today. They were painted in vibrant colors, reds, blues, yellows, and greens, decorated with elaborate stucco reliefs depicting gods, ancestors, and cosmic symbols. Banners made of cloth and paper might have hung from doorways, and copal incense would have scented the air around important temples and palaces. The sounds of the city would have filled her days, the calls of merchants in the marketplace, the rhythmic sounds of craftspeople working stone and wood, the songs of children playing, the murmur of courtiers and officials discussing matters of state. From the surrounding jungle would come the calls of birds and howler monkeys, blending with the human activity to create the soundtrack of a living city, far different from the hushed archaeological site we visit today. The queen's diet would have been more varied and refined than that of common Maya people. While the staple foods of corn, beans, and squash formed the foundation of all Maya cuisine, royalty enjoyed delicacies including chocolate, highly valued and often reserved for the elite, exotic fruits, honey, game meats, and fish. Meals would be served on fine pottery, painted with intricate designs and religious symbols. As you continue to rest peacefully, perhaps noticing the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, consider the profound journey that took the Red Queen from this vibrant life to her mysterious crimson-coated tomb. At some point in her later years, her health began to fail. Analysis of her remains suggests she suffered from osteoporosis and may have experienced dental problems common to Maya elites, whose diet often included more sugar than that of commoners. When she died, the people of Palenque, led perhaps by her sons, if she was indeed Sakboaja, would have begun elaborate funerary rituals to prepare her for the journey to the underworld. The Maya believed that death was not an end, but a transition to another state of being. The deceased would need to journey through a Saboba, the fearsome underworld, filled with tests and tribulations, before reaching their final resting place. The preparation of her body would have been carried out with great care and ritual significance. Her remains would have been wrapped in fine cloth, and perhaps initially placed in a wooden bier. Priests would have performed ceremonies, burning incense and offering prayers to guide her spirit. The decision to coat her remains, and the interior of her sarcophagus with cinnabar, was a powerful statement of her importance. The red mineral was not only valuable, but symbolic of life force and rebirth. The jade objects placed with her were not randomly selected. Each piece would have had specific meaning within Maya cosmology. The mask protected her identity in the afterlife. The jade beads and ornaments proclaimed her status. The figurine placed in her mouth may have been intended as nourishment for her ka spirit, or as payment to the lords of the underworld for safe passage. The construction of her tomb within Temple 13 was itself a monumental undertaking. Workers would have carefully built the burial chamber, ensuring it was properly aligned according to Maya cosmological principles. The stairway leading down to the chamber was deliberately filled in after her burial, sealing her away not just from potential tomb robbers, but as part of the ritual separation between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. And then, for 13 centuries, the Red Queen rested in her crimson cocoon, undisturbed as empires rose and fell above her. The Maya civilization itself would begin to transform, not long after her death. By around 900 CE, many of the great classic Maya cities had been abandoned, including Palenque. The reasons for this collapse remain debated, perhaps climate change, warfare, resource depletion, or a combination of factors led people to leave the once mighty cities and disperse into smaller communities. The jungle slowly reclaimed Palenque, vines and roots embracing the stone buildings, covering them in a green mantle. Trees grew through plazas where nobles once walked. Rainfall and time wore away at the painted stucco, leaving only the underlying stone. Occasionally, local people might visit the ruins, perhaps maintaining some memory of the site's sacred importance, but the specific knowledge of who was buried within the temples faded from human memory. Spanish conquistadors arrived in Mexico in the early 16th century, bringing disease, warfare, and cultural devastation to the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica. The descendants of the Maya who had built Palenque faced persecution, forced conversion to Christianity, and the systematic destruction of their books and religious objects. Yet despite these efforts to erase Maya culture, many traditions and beliefs persisted, passed down through generations, often blending with Catholic practices to survive in disguised forms. Palenque itself remained largely forgotten by the wider world until the 18th century, when European explorers began to take interest in the mysterious ruins emerging from the Mexican jungle. In 1773, Ramón de Ordóñez y Aguilar became one of the first to document the site for a European audience. By the 19th century, explorers like Jean-Frédéric Waldeck and John Lloyd Stephens were producing detailed accounts and illustrations of Palenque that captured the imagination of people around the world. Throughout this time, the Red Queen remained undisturbed, her existence unknown, her identity unrecorded. While early archaeologists investigated the visible structures at Palenque, they had no knowledge of the hidden burial chambers concealed within the pyramids. It would take the development of modern archaeological techniques and the persistent work of Mexican researchers to finally uncover her resting place in 1994. As sleep perhaps begins to feel closer now, let your mind drift with the gentle story of discovery that finally brought the Red Queen back into human awareness after her long slumber. The archaeological team, led by Fanny López Jiménez, had been working at Palenque for years, carefully documenting and preserving the ancient city's remaining structures. Temple 13 had not been a primary focus of research before standing in the shadow of the more impressive Temple of the Inscriptions. It seemed a relatively minor structure. But archaeology is often about patience and careful observation. The team began to notice subtle anomalies in the temple's construction, patterns in the stonework that hinted at hidden features. When they discovered a sealed passageway leading downward into the pyramid's base, they knew they had found something significant, though they could not yet guess what awaited them below. The descent into the tomb required careful work to remove centuries of accumulated debris without damaging the ancient structure. The archaeologists worked in difficult conditions. The interior of the pyramid was hot, humid, and confined, with limited air circulation. Each stone had to be carefully documented and set aside, preserving the archaeological context for future study. When they finally broke through into the burial chamber itself, they entered a space that had not felt human presence for 13 centuries. The air would have been still and heavy, perhaps carrying that faint metallic scent from the cinnabar that coated every surface. Their flashlight beams, cutting through the darkness, would have reflected off the red powder that covered the plain limestone sarcophagus. With meticulous care, the team documented everything exactly as they found it before disturbing anything. Photographs, measurements, and detailed notes preserved the context of each artifact. When they finally lifted the sarcophagus lid, the brilliant red interior and the jade-adorned remains would have been a breathtaking sight, a moment of connection across more than a millennium of time. The discovery of the Red Queen was not just significant for what it revealed about Maya burial practices or material culture. It was important because it expanded our understanding of the role of women in Maya royal society. While male rulers like Pakal have received the lion's share of attention in studies of Maya civilization. The Red Queen's elaborate burial confirmed that women of high status were also honored with sophisticated funeral rites and valuable grave goods. In the years since her discovery, the Red Queen's remains and the artifacts from her tomb have been carefully preserved and studied. The jade mask and jewelry have been painstakingly cleaned and restored, revealing workmanship of exceptional quality. The bones themselves have offered clues about her life. Analysis suggests she was approximately 5'2" tall and between 50-60 years old when she died. As you continue to rest peacefully, perhaps drifting deeper into relaxation, let's explore more deeply the significance of the Red Queen's elaborate burial and what it reveals about Maya culture and beliefs. The vibrant red cinnabar that gave her the name Red Queen was more than just a preservative or decorative element. It held profound symbolic meaning in the Maya worldview. Cinnabar, or mercury sulfide, was one of the most sacred substances in ancient Mesoamerica. Its blood-red color connected it directly to the life force that Maya people believed animated all living things. Blood itself was considered the most precious offering one could give to the gods. Maya royalty regularly performed ritual bloodletting, using obsidian blades or stingray spines to draw blood from their tongues, ears, or genitals as sacred offerings. By coating the Red Queen's remains and sarcophagus with cinnabar, her mourners were symbolically bathing her in blood, perhaps to nourish and strengthen her for the difficult journey through the underworld. The Maya believed that the color red was associated with the east, the direction of sunrise, rebirth, and new beginnings. It represented the first of the 4 cosmic directions in their elaborate cosmology. By wrapping the queen in this powerful color, they were preparing her for regeneration in the afterlife, signaling to the gods that this was a person of tremendous importance whose journey should be blessed and protected. There is also a practical dimension to the use of cinnabar, though the Maya would not have understood it in modern scientific terms. Mercury compounds have antimicrobial properties that help preserve organic material. The cinnabar coating may have helped slow the decomposition of the queen's body, though it could not prevent it entirely over the span of 13 centuries. Interestingly, the use of cinnabar in elite Maya burials created an unintended archaeological signature. The vibrant red mineral stained the bones it touched, literally marking the remains of high-status individuals for future discovery. In this way, the Red Queen carries her royal status in her very bones, which retain the crimson hue of her burial ritual, even after more than a millennium. The jade artifacts found with the Red Queen are equally significant for understanding Maya culture and beliefs. For the Maya, jade was more precious than gold. Its green color associated it with water, vegetation, and life itself. Jade was believed to capture the breath of the gods, containing divine essence within its cool, smooth surface. The jade mask that once covered the Red Queen's face would have been created specifically for her burial. Unlike some Maya masks carved from single pieces of jade, hers was a mosaic composed of smaller pieces fitted together to create a likeness. This technique allowed artisans to use smaller pieces of the precious stone while creating larger objects. When found by archaeologists, the mask had collapsed inward with the decomposition of the face it once covered, but careful restoration work has helped reveal its original appearance. Maya burial masks served multiple purposes. They preserved the identity of the deceased in the afterlife, providing a perfect, imperishable face to replace the mortal one that would decay. They also transformed the deceased into a divine being. In death, Maya rulers became even more godlike than they had been in life, ascending to join their deified ancestors in the celestial realm. The hundreds of jade beads found around the Red Queen's neck, wrists, and ankles would have formed elaborate necklaces, bracelets, and anklets. Each bead required hours of painstaking work to shape and polish using simple stone tools and abrasives, as the Maya did not have metal tools hard enough to easily work jade. The cumulative labor, represented in these jade ornaments is staggering, a testament to the resources the royal court could command. The jade figurine, placed in the Red Queen's mouth, follows a common Maya burial practice. Objects placed in the mouths of the deceased often represented food for the afterlife journey or payment to supernatural gatekeepers. In some Maya beliefs, a bead or figurine in the mouth could serve as a new heart or soul essence for the deceased in the afterlife. As you continue to relax, perhaps noticing the comfortable weight of your body against the surface supporting you, let's consider how the Red Queen's tomb compares to that of her presumed husband Pakal the Great, and what these differences might tell us about gender in Maya royal culture. Pakal's tomb, discovered in 1952, is larger and more elaborately decorated than the Red Queen's. His sarcophagus features an intricately carved lid showing the king falling into the maw of the underworld and being reborn as a divine ancestor. The walls of his burial chamber are adorned with stucco figures representing his ancestors reaching out to welcome him to the afterlife. His tomb contained not only jade ornaments, but also offerings of food and drink in ceramic vessels. The Red Queen's burial, while still extraordinarily rich, is somewhat more modest. Her sarcophagus is plain limestone without carved decoration. Her burial chamber lacks the elaborate stucco figures that adorn Pakal's tomb, yet the quality of her jade ornaments and the liberal use of precious cinnabar indicate she was someone of tremendous importance. These differences might reflect gender distinctions in Maya society. Male rulers were more prominently featured in public monuments and inscriptions, their military conquests and political achievements celebrated in stone. Royal women, while certainly powerful and influential, were often recognized more for their roles as mothers of future kings and as ritual practitioners rather than as military leaders. However, we should be careful not to project modern gender assumptions onto ancient Maya society. Archaeological evidence indicates that some Maya women did rule in their own right. At Palenque itself, Lady Yule Ignal ruled as queen regnant from 583 to 604 CE, and Pakal's mother, Lady Sak Cook, served as ruler before her son came of age. Monuments from other Maya cities show royal women performing important rituals, conducting diplomatic meetings, and even taking part in warfare. If the Red Queen was indeed exquisite, Pakal's wife, her elaborate burial suggests she was respected not just as the king's consort, but as a powerful figure in her own right. The location of her tomb, in a pyramid adjacent to the Temple of the Inscriptions where Pakal was buried, suggests a relationship of complementarity rather than subordination. Together in death as in life, the king and queen embodied the divine balance of masculine and feminine principles that the Maya believed sustained the cosmos. As night deepens around you, and perhaps sleep begins to feel closer, let's travel back in time once more to imagine the Red Queen's funeral and the elaborate rituals that would have accompanied her journey to the afterlife. The Maya approach to death was complex and sophisticated, viewing it not as an ending but as a transformation and transition to another state of being. The announcement of her death would send ripples through Palenque and beyond. Messengers would be dispatched to allied cities and to her home city if she was indeed from elsewhere originally. Nobles and dignitaries would begin journeying to Palenque to pay their respects and witness the funeral ceremonies. Common people would begin periods of fasting and special observances to mark the passing of their queen. The funeral itself would have been an elaborate public spectacle lasting several days. The queen's body, adorned with jade ornaments and perhaps displayed on an elevated platform, would be carried in procession through the city. Mourners would line the route, some wailing and demonstrating their grief, others maintaining solemn silence as protocol demanded. Professional mourners might have been employed to ensure the appropriate display of emotion befitting a royal passing. Musicians would play drums, rattles, and wind instruments, creating a somber soundtrack for the procession. Incense burners would release clouds of copal smoke, the sweet resinous scent creating a pathway between the earthly and divine realms. Priests would chant prayers and incantations, invoking the gods to receive the queen's spirit graciously and guide her safely through the perils of Sebulba, the underworld. At the Temple 13, where her tomb chamber had been prepared, the most sacred part of the funeral would take place. Only the highest-ranking nobles, priests, and family members would be permitted to enter the temple for these final rites. Here, her body would receive its final preparations before being placed in the limestone sarcophagus. It was likely at this stage that the cinnabar would be applied, coating her remains and the interior of the sarcophagus with the sacred red mineral. The jade mask would be placed over her face and her jewelry arranged properly on her body. The jade figurine would be placed in her mouth with appropriate prayers and invocations. Other offerings might be placed around her within the sarcophagus: textiles, food, and personal items that have long since decomposed, leaving no trace for archaeologists to find. As the heavy limestone lid was lowered onto the sarcophagus, sealing the queen inside, final prayers would be offered. Perhaps family members would perform one last bloodletting ritual, offering their own vital essence to strengthen her for the journey ahead. Then the tomb would be sealed, and the stairway leading to it filled with rubble and stone, separating the world of the living from the realm of the dead. For days or weeks afterward, commemorative rituals would continue. Feasts might be held in the queen's honor, with elaborate foods served to noble guests. Stories of her life and accomplishments would be recounted. Perhaps new monuments would be commissioned, recording her name and relationship to the royal dynasty, though if these existed, they have not survived or have not yet been discovered by archaeologists. Over time, regular offerings would be made at Temple 13, maintaining the connection between the living community and their departed queen. On significant calendar dates, special ceremonies might be performed to honor her memory and ensure her continued beneficial influence on the kingdom she had left behind. And then, as generations passed, as rulers succeeded one another on Palenque's throne, as the city itself eventually declined and was reclaimed by the jungle, direct knowledge of the Red Queen faded. Perhaps stories were still told of a great queen whose body rested within the small pyramid beside the Temple of the Inscriptions, but eventually even these stories were forgotten. For more than 1,000 years, she rested in her crimson cocoon, undisturbed as civilizations rose and fell above her. The Maya world transformed, fragmented under the pressures of environmental change, warfare, and social upheaval. The Spanish conquest brought new religions, languages, and ways of life to the descendants of those who had once revered the Red Queen, and still she slept, unknown and undisturbed in her hidden chamber. As you continue to rest peacefully, let's shift our focus to the remarkable jade artifacts found in the Red Queen's tomb, and what they tell us about Maya artistry and craftsmanship. The jade objects that accompanied the queen in death represent some of the finest examples of Maya lapidary work ever discovered. Jade is an exceptionally hard stone, rating between 6 and 7 on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. Without metal tools comparable in hardness, working jade presents significant challenges. Maya artisans overcame these challenges through patience, skill, and ingenuity, using tools made of stone, wood, bone, and abrasives like sand and crushed jade dust itself. The process of creating a jade ornament began with obtaining the raw material, which was itself a difficult task. The primary source of jade in Mesoamerica was the Motagua River Valley in what is now Guatemala. Mining the stone required considerable effort, and transporting the heavy raw material over mountainous terrain without wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden was a logistical challenge that speaks to the value placed on this green stone. Once at the royal workshops of cities like Palenque, jade boulders would be cut into workable pieces using cord saws, lengths of cord or vine pulled back and forth through an abrasive slurry of water and sand. This painstaking process could take days to complete a single cut. The pieces would then be roughly shaped by percussion flaking, carefully striking the jade to remove unwanted material without shattering the precious stone. fine shaping and detailing required even more patience and skill. Maya artisans used stone and wooden tools with abrasives to slowly grind and polish the jade into the desired forms. Drilling holes through jade beads, necessary for stringing them into necklaces and bracelets, was accomplished using hollow bird bone or reed drills with abrasive slurry spun rapidly between the palms. A single bead might require hours or even days of work to complete, depending on its size and complexity. The jade mask found in the Red Queen's tomb represents an even more sophisticated technical achievement. Creating a mosaic mask required not only shaping individual tiles of jade but ensuring they fit together precisely to form a cohesive whole. The artisans would have needed to envision the complete design while working on individual pieces, a feat of planning and execution that speaks to the high level of craftsmanship in Maya royal workshops. The effort represented in these jade artifacts is staggering. The hundreds of beads, the elaborate ear flares, and the mosaic mask found in the Red Queen's tomb would have required thousands of hours of skilled labor to create. Only the highest elites of Maya society could command such resources, a tangible demonstration of the Queen's status and importance. Beyond their material value and the labor they represented, these jade objects held profound spiritual significance. For the Maya, jade was alive in a very real sense. It captured and embodied divine essence. The cool touch of jade, its smoothness and weight, its subtle variations in color from pale apple green to deep emerald, all these qualities connected it to water, vegetation, breath, and life itself. By adorning the Red Queen with jade in death, her mourners were not simply displaying her wealth and status. They were wrapping her in symbols of life and regeneration, providing her with divine protection for her journey through the underworld, and embedding her very body with the sacred power of jade. Each bead, each ornament, each tile of her mask carried not just material value, but spiritual potency. As the night deepens and perhaps your thoughts begin to grow more dreamlike, let's consider the mystery that continues to surround the Red Queen, her identity. While many scholars believe she was exquisite, Pakal's wife and the mother of his sons, this identification is not absolutely certain. The tomb contains no inscriptions naming its occupant, and without DNA evidence linking her definitively to Pakal or his descendants, we cannot know with complete certainty who she was. If she was indeed Satbu Ajah, what do we know about this queen from other sources? Historical inscriptions from Palenque tell us that she came from a place called Uxteco, possibly a smaller city under Palenque's influence. She married Pakal when he was 32 years old, and she was 33, relatively late marriages by Maya royal standards, where political alliances were often formed by betrothing children or teenagers. Their marriage lasted for at least 26 years, during which she bore Pakal at least 3 sons, Kiniki Kan Balam II, Kiniki Kan Joy Chitam II, and Tiwul Chan Mat. All 3 would eventually rule Palenque in succession after their father's death, continuing the dynasty that Pakal had established. Inscriptions suggest that Satbu Ajah was respected and influential in her own right. She appears in carved scenes, performing important rituals alongside her husband, indicating her active participation in the religious ceremonies that legitimized Maya rule. She outlived Pakal by several years, witnessing the succession of their eldest son to the throne before her own death. If the Red Queen was not Satbu Ajah, but another royal woman, perhaps Yul Ignal or Satkuk, this would raise interesting questions about the organization of royal burials at Palenque. Why would an earlier queen be buried in such close proximity to Pakal? Did Temple 13 have special significance that made it an appropriate resting place for different generations of royal women? The absence of identifying inscriptions in the tomb itself is puzzling. Pakal's sarcophagus and tomb walls featured elaborate texts naming him and detailing his accomplishments and lineage. Why would the Red Queen's final resting place lack similar identifying markers? Was her identity meant to be known through other monuments that haven't survived? Or was the absence of her name a deliberate part of the burial ritual, perhaps related to Maya concepts of transformation in death? These questions may never be fully answered, and perhaps there is a certain poetry in the Red Queen's continued anonymity. Like so many women throughout history, her individuality has been somewhat obscured, even as her status and importance are unmistakable. The splendor of her burial goods speaks to her significance, even as her personal identity remains just beyond our grasp. As you drift closer to sleep, let's turn our attention to what happened after the Red Queen's discovery in 1994. And how her tomb has enhanced our understanding of Maya civilization. The finding of such a well-preserved royal burial was a significant archaeological event, generating excitement among researchers and the public alike. After careful documentation of the tomb and its contents, the Red Queen's remains and artifacts were removed for preservation and study. The cinnabar, while beautifully preserving her burial context, presented conservation challenges. Mercury compounds can be harmful to both artifacts and the people handling them, requiring specialized treatment and storage conditions. The jade ornaments underwent careful cleaning and conservation to remove centuries of accumulated minerals and reveal their original appearance. Some pieces required delicate restoration work, particularly the collapsed jade mask, which needed to be reconstructed based on the position of the pieces as found. Conservation scientists used advanced techniques to stabilize these precious artifacts while preserving their archaeological integrity. Analysis of the Red Queen's skeletal remains provided insights into her life and health. Examination of bone density indicated she suffered from osteoporosis, a condition common in older women. Her teeth showed wear patterns consistent with the Maya noble diet, which included more processed maize and sweeteners than that of commoners. The red staining of her bones from the cinnabar has persisted, a permanent marker of her royal status. Carbon dating of organic material from the tomb placed its creation in the late 7th century CE, consistent with the period when Ixtacekbu Ajah would have died if she was indeed the tomb's occupant. This dating also confirmed the tomb's contemporaneity with Palenque's golden age under Pakal and his immediate successors. Today, visitors to Palenque can see a replica of the Red Queen's sarcophagus in its original location within Temple 13. The actual remains and artifacts are housed in the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City and the Site Museum at Palenque, where climate-controlled conditions help preserve these fragile treasures for future generations. Here, the exquisite jade ornaments that once adorned the Queen's body are displayed, allowing modern viewers to appreciate the extraordinary artistry of Maya craftspeople. The discovery of the Red Queen has had a significant impact on our understanding of Maya civilization. It has highlighted the importance of royal women in Maya society, demonstrating that queens received elaborate burials comparable to those of kings. The tomb has provided invaluable information about Maya funerary practices, religious beliefs, and artistic traditions. It has also sparked renewed interest in Palenque and Maya archaeology more broadly, contributing to ongoing efforts to preserve and study this remarkable civilization. Perhaps most importantly, the Red Queen reminds us that the story of Maya civilization is not just one of kings and warriors, but of women whose lives and contributions shaped their society in profound ways. Though her name may remain uncertain, her legacy endures through the beautiful objects that accompanied her in death and the insights her discovery has provided into the complex, sophisticated world of the ancient Maya. As sleep perhaps begins to embrace you more fully, carry with you the image of the Red Queen's crimson-dusted tomb sealed for 13 centuries beneath the jungle-covered pyramid. Consider how her story connects us across time to a civilization that, despite its eventual decline, created works of such beauty and meaning that they continue to inspire wonder today. In the jade masks and delicate jewelry, in the careful attention to funerary ritual, in the symbolic power of the blood-red cinnabar, we glimpse the humanity we share with these ancient people, our common hopes, fears, creativity, and search for meaning in the face of mortality. As you continue to drift peacefully toward sleep, let's expand our exploration beyond the Red Queen herself to the remarkable civilization that created her splendid tomb. The Maya world in which she lived was a complex tapestry of art, science, religion, and politics, a society that reached extraordinary heights of achievement while remaining deeply rooted in a spiritual worldview quite different from our own. The Maya civilization flourished in what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, reaching its classic period zenith between approximately 250 and 900 CE. Rather than a unified empire like Rome or China, the Maya world consisted of numerous independent city-states, each with its own ruling dynasty, bound together by shared language, religion, and cultural practices while often competing with one another for resources and prestige. Palenque, where the Red Queen lived and died, was one of these city-states controlling territory in what is now the Mexican state of Chiapas. At its height under Pakal the Great, Palenque was home to perhaps 10,000 people, with tens of thousands more living in the surrounding countryside under its influence. While not the largest Maya center, Palenque was renowned for its architectural elegance and artistic sophistication. The physical setting of Palenque is breathtaking, nestled against the first rise of mountains with a commanding view of the plains stretching northward. Abundant freshwater springs issue from the hills behind the city, providing a reliable water supply that was channeled through sophisticated aqueducts and drainage systems. The natural environment offered rich resources: tropical hardwoods for construction, limestone for building material, fertile soil for agriculture, and diverse plants and animals for food and materials. The city's layout reveals careful planning and astronomical awareness. Major structures align with significant celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes. The central palace complex, a labyrinthine arrangement of courtyards, corridors, and rooms built atop a massive raised platform, served as both royal residence and administrative center. Its distinctive four-story tower may have functioned as an observatory for tracking the movements of celestial bodies so important to Maya timekeeping and religious observances. Surrounding the palace are various temples and pyramids, each with specific religious functions. The Temple of the Inscriptions, where Pakal was buried, is the largest of these structures, containing the longest known Maya hieroglyphic text carved on stone panels within the temple. Nearby Temple 13, where the Red Queen was discovered, is more modest in size, but clearly important enough to house a royal burial of tremendous significance. Beyond the ceremonial center stretched residential areas for the noble and merchant classes, with more humble dwellings for craftspeople and laborers extending outward from the core. The majority of the population lived in perishable structures that have left little archaeological trace, their homes built of wood and thatch rather than the stone used for elite and ceremonial buildings. Life in Palenque would have followed rhythms dictated by both natural cycles and the elaborate Maya calendar system. Daily activities would begin with the first light of dawn, as smoke from cooking fires rose above the city. Markets would bustle with trade in foodstuffs, textiles, pottery, and craft goods. In workshops throughout the city, artisans would practice specialized crafts: pottery making, jade carving, textile weaving, and the creation of elaborate featherwork that was highly prized by the elite. The social structure of Maya society was hierarchical but complex. At the apex stood the Kul Aja, the Holy Lord, or King, believed to embody divine power and serve as an intermediary between the human and supernatural realms. The royal family, including queens like the Red Queen, occupied the highest tier of society. Below them were noble families of varying ranks, some related to the royal lineage, others having earned their status through military achievements or specialized knowledge. The middle ranks of society included professional craftspeople, merchants, and minor officials. At the base of the social pyramid were farmers, laborers, and servants. While social mobility was limited, it was not entirely absent. Exceptional individuals could sometimes rise through military service, artistic achievement, or religious knowledge. One distinctive feature of Maya civilization that set it apart from many contemporary societies worldwide was its development of a complete writing system. Maya script, with its elegant and complex glyphs, could express any concept in the spoken language. Scribes, highly trained specialists who often came from elite families, recorded historical events, astronomical observations, religious concepts, and dynastic information on stone monuments, pottery, bark paper books, codices, and other media. The ability to read and write was largely confined to the elite classes and specialized scribes, but the visual impact of hieroglyphic inscriptions would have been appreciated by all members of society. Public monuments declared the achievements of rulers, connected them to divine authority, and legitimized their right to rule. For a largely non-literate population, these carved and painted texts served as powerful visual symbols of authority and cosmic order. Alongside their writing system, the Maya developed sophisticated mathematical concepts, including the use of zero as a placeholder. Centuries before this concept appeared in European mathematics, their vigesimal-based 20-number system allowed for calculations of enormous numbers, particularly useful in their astronomical and calendrical records. The Maya calendar system itself represents one of their most impressive intellectual achievements. They maintained several interlocking calendar cycles simultaneously, including the Tzolk'in 260-day ritual calendar, the Hab 365-day solar calendar, and the long count, which tracked days from a mythological starting point, corresponding to August 11th, 3114 BCE in our Gregorian calendar. By combining these different cycles, Maya timekeepers could uniquely identify any day within a period of approximately 5,125 years. This profound interest in time and celestial cycles was intimately connected to Maya religious beliefs. They viewed time as both cyclical and linear, with patterns repeating at different scales while moving toward future destinations. The movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars were not merely natural phenomena, but the visible journeys of deities through the cosmos, their positions influencing events on Earth. The Maya pantheon was complex and fluid, with deities often having multiple aspects and associations. Major gods included Itzemna, the creator deity associated with the sky and knowledge, Kenich Ajah, the sun god, Chek, the rain deity, so crucial in an agricultural society, and Ixchel, the moon goddess associated with medicine, childbirth, and weaving. The fearsome lords of Sebulba, the underworld, played crucial roles in myths about death and rebirth. For the Maya, the cosmos consisted of three primary realms: the celestial domain above, the earthly middle world, where humans dwelled, and the watery underworld below. These realms were connected by the sacred ceiba tree, whose roots reached into the underworld, while its branches extended into the heavens. The natural world was alive with spiritual forces. Mountains, caves, springs, and ancient trees were not merely features of the landscape, but dwellings of supernatural beings, requiring respect and ritual attention. As you continue to rest peacefully, imagine the Red Queen participating in the religious life of Palenque. As a royal woman, she would have played important roles in ceremonies marking calendar transitions, agricultural cycles, and dynastic events. Unlike some ancient societies that restricted women's participation in religious rituals, Maya women, particularly those of elite status, actively engaged in ceremonies that included bloodletting, offerings, and communion with ancestral spirits. Maya ritual life was rich with symbolism and sensory elements. Copal incense, produced from tree resin, would fill sacred spaces with sweet, aromatic smoke, believed to please the gods and facilitate communication between realms. Music from drums, rattles, whistles, and shell trumpets would create sound landscapes that altered consciousness and marked ritual time. Dance performances would tell sacred stories through movement, with participants wearing elaborate costumes and masks representing deities and cosmic forces. The palace where the Red Queen would have lived embodied Maya cosmological principles in its very design. The elevated platform on which it was built symbolically raised the royal family above the ordinary world, placing them closer to the celestial realm. Doorways aligned with significant astronomical events, allowing sunlight to penetrate specific interior spaces at symbolically charged moments. Even the blue-green paint that originally covered many palace walls evoked jade, water, and the center of the world in Maya color symbolism. Within this sacred landscape, daily life for the Red Queen would have blended practical governance with ritual obligations. She likely oversaw the female members of the royal household, including servants, weavers who created fine textiles, and perhaps female scribes who recorded dynastic information. She would have supervised the production of food and beverages for royal consumption and for elaborate feasts that reinforced political alliances. As the mother of future kings, her careful supervision of her son's education would have been of paramount importance to the dynasty's continuation. While male rulers like Pakal are more prominently featured in public monuments, inscriptions from various Maya sites indicate that royal women wielded significant influence. They managed household resources, participated in diplomatic relations with other cities, particularly those from which they originated, and maintained important ritual knowledge. Some royal women served as regents for young sons, while others ruled in their own right when male heirs were unavailable or too young to take the throne. The Red Queen would have been a keeper of genealogical knowledge, maintaining awareness of the complex kinship networks that structured Maya politics. Marriage alliances between cities were crucial diplomatic tools, and noble women often moved between cities as brides, bringing with them not only political connections, but cultural knowledge, artistic styles, and religious practices that cross-fertilized Maya civilization. As the wife of Pakal, if that was indeed her identity, the Red Queen would have witnessed and participated in one of Palenque's most vibrant periods. Under Pakal's 68-year reign, the city recovered from earlier military defeats and embarked on an ambitious building program that created many of the structures still visible today. The palace was expanded, the Temple of the Inscriptions was constructed, and Palenque's influence in the region grew through both diplomatic and military means. The material culture that surrounded the Red Queen in life would have been as refined and beautiful as the jade artifacts that accompanied her in death. Her living quarters would have featured plastered walls, painted with murals depicting mythological scenes, historical events, or abstract designs in vibrant colors. Textiles of cotton and perhaps exotic feathers would have softened stone surfaces and provided visual interest. Ceramic vessels painted with complex scenes and hieroglyphs would have held food, drink, and precious items. As night deepens around you, and perhaps sleep draws nearer, let's consider the broader historical context in which the Red Queen lived, and the eventual decline of the brilliant civilization that created her crimson-dusted tomb. The 7th century CE, when the Red Queen likely lived, represented a high point for many classic Maya cities. Population levels throughout the Maya region were at their peak. Long-distance trade networks connected Maya centers with each other, and with distant Mesoamerican civilizations like Teotihuacan in central Mexico. Artistic and architectural achievements reached new levels of sophistication, and hieroglyphic writing recorded historical events with increasing detail. Yet beneath this cultural flowering, environmental and social pressures were building. The growing population placed increasing demands on the surrounding landscape. Forests were cleared for agriculture and construction materials, potentially altering local rainfall patterns. Intensive farming practices may have led to soil depletion in some areas. As cities competed for limited resources, warfare between rival centers intensified. The Red Queen, if she lived into old age, might have witnessed the beginning of subtle changes that would eventually lead to what archaeologists call the classic Maya collapse, the abandonment of many major ceremonial centers, and the dramatic reduction in monumental building, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and elite material culture that occurred between roughly 750 and 900 CE. Palenque itself was one of the earlier cities to experience decline. By around 800 CE, construction of major monuments had ceased, and hieroglyphic texts were no longer being produced. Eventually, the city's population dispersed, with people returning to smaller settlements in the surrounding countryside. The once bustling ceremonial center was gradually reclaimed by the jungle, its painted buildings fading under the onslaught of tropical rains, its plazas obscured by encroaching vegetation. The reasons for this collapse remain debated among scholars. Climate change may have played a significant role, with evidence suggesting prolonged droughts affected the region during this period. Environmental degradation from deforestation and intensive agriculture likely contributed to food production challenges. Political factors, including increased warfare between centers and potential peasant revolts against elite rule, may have destabilized the social order. Rather than a single cause, the collapse likely resulted from a complex interaction of environmental, political, and social factors that varied from region to region. It's important to note that while many major ceremonial centers were abandoned, Maya civilization itself did not disappear. Many people continued to live in smaller communities throughout the region, maintaining aspects of Maya culture, language, and religion. In northern Yucatan, cities like Chichen Itza and later Mayapan continued to flourish, though with modified political structures and cultural expressions influenced by central Mexican traditions. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the early 16th century, they encountered still vibrant Maya communities with functioning political systems and rich cultural traditions. The conquest brought devastating disease, warfare, and cultural disruption to Maya populations. But despite centuries of colonization and pressure to abandon indigenous practices, Maya culture has persisted. Today, millions of Maya people maintain their languages, cultural practices, and connection to their ancient heritage while navigating the complexities of the modern world. Throughout these centuries of change, the Red Queen rested undisturbed in her tomb, her existence unknown to the descendants of those who had placed her there with such care and reverence. The knowledge of who she was and why she merited such an elaborate burial faded from human memory, preserved only in the silent testimony of her cinnabar-coated remains and jade ornaments. As your mind perhaps grows more peacefully distant from everyday concerns, let's consider other remarkable women from Maya history, whose stories, like that of the Red Queen, offer glimpses into the complex roles royal women played in this fascinating civilization. One of the most well-documented Maya queens was Lady Cabell, who ruled the city of El Peruhuaca in what is now Guatemala during the 7th century CE, contemporaneous with the Red Queen. Inscriptions describe Lady Cabell as a Kalumte, a supreme military leader, a title rarely held by women in Maya society. She appears to have wielded greater political power than her husband King Kinnick Balam, ruling for at least 2 decades. In 2012, archaeologists discovered what they believed to be Lady Cabell's tomb, containing a white alabaster jar carved with the image of an elderly female ruler and inscribed with Lady Cabell's titles. At Palenque itself, several powerful women helped shape the city's history. Lady Yule Ignal ruled Palenque from approximately 583 to 604 CE, one of the few women known to have governed a Maya city in her own right rather than as a regent for a male heir. She took the full royal title of Kuul Ajah Holy Lord, typically reserved for male rulers, suggesting her authority was comparable to that of a king. Monuments commissioned during her reign show her participating in important rituals and military campaigns. Lady Sut Coke, mother of Pakal the Great, ruled Palenque from approximately 612 to 615 CE, before her son came of age. She is depicted on a famous relief panel from Palenque showing her presenting the royal headdress to her son, symbolically transferring power to him. However, inscriptions suggest she continued to wield significant influence throughout much of Pakal's reign, serving as an important advisor to her son. These examples remind us that while Maya society was generally patriarchal, with male rulers predominating, royal women could and did exercise substantial political power. Their influence extended beyond the domestic sphere to include governance, diplomacy, warfare, and religious leadership. The Red Queen, whoever she was, existed within this tradition of female leadership and influence, her elaborate burial testament to her importance within Palenque's royal hierarchy. As sleep perhaps feels ever closer, let's turn our attention to some of the most fascinating Maya beliefs about death and the afterlife, concepts that shape the Red Queen's burial and reflect a worldview quite different from our modern understanding. For the Maya, death was not an end but a transition to another state of being. The soul or life essence was believed to undertake a perilous journey through Xibalba, the underworld, facing various trials and challenges before reaching its final destination. This journey mirrored aspects of the sun's nightly passage beneath the earth, from which it emerged renewed each dawn, a powerful natural metaphor for death and rebirth. Xibalba, literally place of fear, was conceived as a watery cavernous realm ruled by the fearsome lords of death. Maya mythology, preserved in texts like the Popol Vuh, written down after the Spanish conquest, but preserving much older oral traditions, describes Xibalba as arranged in layers, with souls descending through progressively more challenging regions. The journey involved crossing rivers of blood or pus, navigating houses filled with dangers like jaguars or bats, and confronting supernatural beings who posed tests and riddles. Not all souls were believed to face the same posthumous fate. Those who died in childbirth, in battle, or by sacrifice were thought to bypass the trials of Xibalba, ascending directly to celestial realms associated with the sun, moon, or rain. Those who died of natural causes generally needed to complete the underworld journey, with their success influenced by their status, virtue, and the proper performance of funeral rites by the living. The elaborate provisions in royal tombs like the Red Queen's were practical responses to these beliefs. The jade placed in her mouth might serve as payment to supernatural guardians of the underworld paths. Her jewelry and fine burial goods demonstrated her high status to the lords of death. The cinnabar coating, with its blood-like appearance, might have been understood as a form of protection or nourishment for her journey. Every element of her burial served not just to honor her memory, but to ensure her successful transition to an appropriate afterlife. Maya beliefs held that the deceased could influence the living for good or ill. Ancestors, properly honored through offerings and remembrance rituals, could intercede with supernatural forces on behalf of their descendants, bringing blessings like rainfall, abundant harvests, or success in endeavors. Conversely, the unhappy dead, particularly those not given proper burial rites, might cause misfortune. This created an ongoing relationship between the living and the dead, with regular rituals maintaining beneficial connections across the boundary between worlds. For Maya royalty, death transformed them into even more powerful beings than they had been in life. Kings and queens became divine ancestors who joined the complex supernatural hierarchy, taking their place among deities and cosmic forces. Their tombs became not just repositories for their remains, but conduits for communication between realms, places where the living could connect with ancestral power through ritual activities. The Temple 13, where the Red Queen was buried, would have served this function for generations after her death. Regular offerings would have been made there, perhaps on anniversaries of her birth or death, or during calendar ceremonies associated with the underworld. Even after specific memory of who she was might have faded, the location would retain its sacred character as a place where the living and the dead, the earthly and the divine, maintained their delicate necessary balance. As your consciousness perhaps drifts more toward the borders of sleep, consider how the discovery of tombs like the Red Queen's has transformed our understanding of ancient Maya civilization. Before the mid-20th century, many aspects of Maya culture remained mysterious to scholars. Their hieroglyphic writing had not been fully deciphered. The nature of their political organizations was poorly understood. The lives and roles of women in particular were often overlooked in early archaeological interpretations that focused primarily on male rulers and warfare. The gradual decipherment of Maya hieroglyphs, beginning in earnest in the 1950s and making dramatic progress in the 1970s and 1980s, has allowed the Maya to speak to us in their own words across the centuries. Inscriptions revealing the names, titles, family relationships, and accomplishments of historical figures have transformed abstract archaeological remains into the tangible legacy of real people with complex lives and motivations. Discoveries like the Red Queen's tomb have provided invaluable physical evidence to complement the written record. The arrangement of burial goods, the quality of craftsmanship, the symbolic elements like the cinnabar coating, all these details offer insights into Maya beliefs and practices that texts alone might not capture. The Red Queen's physical remains themselves provide information about health, diet, and lifestyle that no written source could convey. Modern archaeological techniques have expanded what we can learn from these ancient burials. Stable isotope analysis of bone can reveal where an individual grew up based on the chemical signature of local water sources that became incorporated into their developing skeleton. This technique has confirmed that many Maya queens, like the women of European royal houses millennia later, came from distant cities to marry local rulers, serving as human links in diplomatic networks spanning the Maya world. DNA analysis, though challenging with ancient remains in tropical environments, offers the possibility of confirming family relationships between individuals found in different tombs. Future advances in this technology may someday allow us to definitively determine whether the Red Queen was indeed related to Pakal or his descendants, potentially resolving the question of her identity. The Red Queen's discovery also highlights the importance of Mexican archaeology and the role of indigenous Mexican archaeologists in uncovering their own cultural heritage. The excavation was led by Fanny Lopez Jimenez and conducted by a Mexican team, representing the continuation of a strong tradition of archaeological research by scholars working in their own country, bringing both professional expertise and cultural connection to their investigation of the past. As night embraces you and perhaps sleep begins to feel imminent, let's conclude our exploration of the Red Queen with a reflection on why her discovery continues to captivate us nearly 3 decades later. Beyond the simple academic value of the archaeological find, there is something profoundly moving about this anonymous woman, her body transformed by cinnabar into a crimson effigy, surrounded by jade treasures, resting undisturbed for 13 centuries while the world above her changed beyond recognition. Perhaps it is the human connection we feel across time, the recognition that despite the vast differences in culture, belief, and circumstance, the Maya people who prepared the Red Queen for her journey to the afterlife shared fundamental human experiences of loss, grief, hope, and reverence for those they loved. The care taken with her burial, the beauty of the objects that accompanied her, the symbolic power of the blood-red cinnabar, all speak to the depth of feeling that transcends time and cultural boundaries. Or perhaps it is the mystery itself that draws us in, the enigma of her identity, the questions about her life and significance that may never be fully answered. In a world where information is increasingly abundant and accessible, there is something compelling about mysteries that remain unsolved, questions that continue to invite wonder and speculation. The Red Queen reminds us that the past is never completely lost to us, that fragments remain waiting to be discovered, to speak to us of lives lived long ago. Like the jade beads that once adorned her body, these fragments are precious not just for their material value but for the connections they represent, threads of human experience that link us to those who came before, reminding us of our place in the long ongoing story of humanity. As you drift toward sleep, carry with you the image of the Red Queen's tomb, sealed beneath the jungle-covered pyramid, its crimson interior holding secrets still only partially revealed. Like the Maya themselves, who understood time as both cyclical and linear, moving forward while folding back upon itself in meaningful patterns, the story of the Red Queen continues to unfold, a narrative that begins in ancient Palenque, extends through her long rest beneath the temple, encompasses her rediscovery in our own era, and reaches toward a future where new techniques and insights may shed further light on her identity and significance. In that ongoing story, tonight you have become a participant, joining the archaeologists, scholars, and visitors who have been touched by the Red Queen's enigmatic presence. As sleep embraces you, perhaps you will dream of jade masks and cinnabar dust, of jungle-shrouded pyramids and royal processions, of a civilization that, though long transformed, continues to speak to us through its art, architecture, and the silent testimony of a queen whose name may be lost, but whose presence endures in her crimson-dusted tomb. As you continue to rest peacefully, perhaps drawing ever closer to the gentle embrace of sleep, let's expand our exploration to consider other remarkable Maya treasures and royal tombs that, like the Red Queen's burial chamber, have illuminated our understanding of this extraordinary civilization. These discoveries, each with its own story of preservation and rediscovery, form a constellation of archaeological wonders that together paint a more complete picture of the ancient Maya world. One of the most spectacular Maya tomb discoveries preceded the finding of the Red Queen by decades: the great burial of King Pakal himself, uncovered in 1952 by Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruzluhuya. The story of this discovery begins with a seemingly minor detail that caught Ruz's trained eye as he examined the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque. He noticed that one of the stone slabs in the temple floor had small holes drilled in its edges, holes that might have been used to lift the stone. This subtle clue suggested something might lie beneath. Acting on this hunch, Ruz and his team began the painstaking process of lifting the heavy stone slab, revealing a rubble-filled stairway descending steeply into the heart of the pyramid. The clearing of this stairway proved to be a monumental task, requiring 4 seasons of fieldwork spread over 4 years. The narrow, debris-choked passage descended at a sharp angle for nearly 25 meters, creating challenging working conditions for the archaeologists who had to remove stone by stone while maintaining careful documentation. At the bottom of this stairway, the team encountered another surprise: a large triangular stone door, sealed with a complicated system of stone plugs. When they finally managed to open this doorway in 1952, they entered a vaulted chamber that had remained sealed for nearly 1,300 years. Inside was a large limestone sarcophagus covered by a massive carved lid weighing several tons. The chamber walls were adorned with stucco relief figures representing Pakal's ancestors welcoming him to the afterlife. When the immense sarcophagus lid was carefully raised, Ruz and his team found the remains of Pakal himself, adorned with an extraordinary jade mosaic death mask and numerous jade ornaments similar to but even more elaborate than those later found with the Red Queen. The king's body had been coated with cinnabar, creating the same blood-red burial environment that would be discovered in the Red Queen's tomb 4 decades later. The lid of Pakal's sarcophagus features one of the most famous and debated carvings in Maya art. It depicts the king falling backward into the jaws of the underworld, which is represented as a skeletal face. Above him rises the world tree, represented as a stylized cross crowned with a supernatural bird. This powerful image has been interpreted as showing Pakal's death and rebirth, his transition from the earthly realm to divine ancestor status. Some alternative interpretations of this carving gained popularity in the 1970s, when author Eric von Däniken claimed the image showed Pakal in a spaceship, suggesting Maya civilization had been influenced by extraterrestrial visitors. Professional archaeologists and Maya scholars have firmly rejected this interpretation, pointing out that every element in the carving corresponds to well-documented Maya religious symbolism related to death, ancestry, and cosmic order. As night deepens around you and perhaps your thoughts become more dreamlike, imagine another remarkable Maya burial discovered in the city of Tikal, located in what is now northern Guatemala. In 1962, archaeologists discovered what became known as Burial 116 beneath temple in one of Tikal's most impressive pyramids. This tomb contained the remains of a ruler, now identified as Jasa Chain Kawil Il, who led Tikal during a period of resurgence in the late Classic period, around 682 to 734 CE. His burial included extraordinary treasures: a jaguar pelt throne, hundreds of pieces of jade jewelry, delicately carved bones, and painted ceramic vessels of exceptional quality. Most striking was a large carved jade representing the sun god, which had been placed in the ruler's mouth. The contents of this royal tomb provided invaluable insights into Maya royal regalia and ritual. The inclusion of so many jade objects reinforced the supreme importance of this green stone in Maya culture. The painted ceramics featured complex scenes of gods and supernatural beings, offering visual representations of Maya religious concepts. The carved bones, likely from jaguar or deer, displayed intricate miniature scenes of royal figures and deities, showcasing the remarkable artistic skills of Maya craftspeople. Another fascinating burial was discovered at the site of Copan in Honduras, where archaeologists found the tomb of the founder of Copan's most successful dynasty, Kinikyaks Mo, who ruled around 426–437 CE. His burial beneath the later Hunal structure contained militaristic imagery suggesting connections with Central Mexican cultures, particularly Teotihuacan, highlighting the complex international relationships that shaped Maya politics and culture. Isotope analysis of the skeleton in this tomb revealed something unexpected. The individual had grown up far from Copan, possibly in the central Mexican highlands. This scientific evidence supports the written record found in later inscriptions, which describe Kinikyaks Mo as coming from elsewhere to establish a new dynasty at Copan, perhaps through conquest or strategic alliance. The tomb thus provides physical confirmation of historical narratives recorded in Maya hieroglyphic texts, bridging the archaeological and written records. In 2018, archaeologists working at the site of Homel in Guatemala discovered another royal tomb dating to around 350 to 400 CE during the early Classic period. The burial contained the remains of a ruler who wore an elaborate jade pendant shaped like a Maya glyph representing wind and breath, concepts associated with royal authority and spiritual power. Over 150 ceramic vessels accompanied the deceased, along with jade ornaments, shell, and obsidian artifacts. What made this discovery particularly significant was an inscription found in the tomb that mentioned the Snake dynasty, a powerful royal lineage that controlled much of the Maya lowlands during certain periods. This textual evidence provides crucial information about political relationships between different Maya cities and the expansion of influential dynasties across the region. As you continue to rest peacefully, perhaps noticing the comfortable weight of your body against the surface supporting you, and let's turn our attention to some non-burial treasures that have enhanced our understanding of Maya civilization. Precious objects that, like the Red Queen's jade ornaments, represent the artistic and technological achievements of this remarkable culture. Among the most famous Maya treasures are the 4 surviving hieroglyphic books, or codices, that escaped the widespread destruction of Maya writing during the Spanish conquest. Written on paper made from the inner bark of fig trees and folded like screens, these codices contain text and images related to astronomy, divination, ritual, and prophecy. Named for the European cities where they are now kept, the Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices provide invaluable insights into Maya intellectual traditions, religious practices, and scientific knowledge. The Dresden Codex, considered the most complete and impressive of the 4, contains detailed astronomical tables tracking the movements of Venus, eclipse predictions, and seasonal calculations. Its pages display the sophisticated mathematical and astronomical knowledge Maya priest astronomers used to coordinate religious observances with celestial cycles. The precision of these calculations remains impressive even by modern standards, achieved without telescopes or other advanced instruments. Another category of Maya treasures comprises the intricately carved stone stelae, singular stela, found at many sites throughout the Maya region. These tall stone monuments, sometimes reaching heights of several meters, typically feature portraits of rulers performing important rituals, accompanied by hieroglyphic texts recording dates, events, and royal genealogies. The stelae served multiple functions as historical records, political propaganda, and focal points for ritual activities. At the site of Quirigua in Guatemala, exceptionally large stelae display some of the most intricate stone carving in the Maya world. The tallest, Stele E, stands over 10 meters high and weighs approximately 65 tons, making it one of the largest monolithic stone monuments in the Americas. These massive stelae, dated to the 8th century CE, commemorate the reign of Cactiliuchanyopa, who had captured and executed the ruler of nearby Copan, dramatically altering the political landscape of the region. Maya artists also created smaller treasures of exceptional beauty and technical sophistication. Carved jades, like those found with the Red Queen, represented the pinnacle of lapidary art. Polychrome ceramic vessels displayed complex narrative scenes with both artistic and textual elements, essentially serving as portable picture books recording myths, historical events, and religious concepts. Intricately carved objects of bone, shell, and wood, many of which have not survived in the tropical environment, demonstrated the breadth of materials Maya artisans could transform into objects of beauty and meaning. As the night grows deeper and perhaps sleep feels closer, let's explore how modern technology is revealing new dimensions of Maya treasures, sometimes finding hidden wonders within already known structures. In recent years, LiDAR light detection and ranging technology has revolutionized Maya archaeology by allowing researchers to digitally remove the jungle canopy from aerial surveys, revealing the subtle topographic signatures of structures, roadways, terraces, and other features previously hidden beneath dense vegetation. In 2018, the results of an extensive LiDAR survey covering over 2,100 square kilometers of northern Guatemala revealed more than 60,000 previously unknown Maya structures. This discovery dramatically increased estimates of the Maya population during the Classic period and highlighted the extent to which they modified their landscape through terracing, water management systems, and defensive structures. The interconnected nature of Maya settlement became clearly visible, with causeways linking urban centers and smaller communities in complex networks. Within known archaeological sites, advanced imaging technologies have revealed hidden aspects of Maya treasures that were invisible to earlier generations of researchers. Multispectral imaging can detect pigments that have faded beyond recognition by the human eye, revealing that sculptures and buildings we now see as plain stone were once painted in vibrant colors. These techniques have uncovered previously unknown texts and images on monuments, adding to our understanding of Maya history and culture. In some cases, new technologies have revealed entire chambers or structures hidden within known buildings. At the site of El Zox in Guatemala, archaeologists discovered a spectacular royal tomb within a pyramid known as Temple of the Night Sun. The burial, dating to around 350–400 CE, contained the remains of a king accompanied by multiple sacrificial victims and rich offerings, including jade masks, marine shells, and pottery vessels. What made this discovery particularly remarkable was a series of large stucco masks decorating the exterior of an earlier version of the temple, which had been completely covered when the pyramid was expanded. These brightly painted masks, representing different phases of the sun as it journeyed across the sky and through the underworld, had remained hidden for centuries until modern archaeological techniques revealed them. Without excavation, their existence would never have been suspected. Even at well-studied sites, like Palenque, where the Red Queen was discovered, new technologies continue to reveal previously unknown treasures. Ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques allow archaeologists to detect potential tombs and chambers without destructive excavation. These methods have identified several anomalies within Palenque's structures that may represent undiscovered burials or ritual deposits, raising the tantalizing possibility that more treasures like those of the Red Queen remain to be found. As you rest peacefully, perhaps feeling sleep drawing ever nearer, let's consider how Maya treasures have sometimes become entangled in modern controversies about cultural heritage, ownership, and repatriation. The spectacular artifacts emerging from sites across the Maya region have created strong demand among collectors, museums, and art markets, sometimes leading to looting and illegal excavation that destroys the archaeological context crucial for proper interpretation. Many important Maya objects in museum and private collections worldwide were removed from their countries of origin during earlier periods when archaeological regulations were less stringent or poorly enforced. In recent decades, countries with significant Maya heritage, Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, have strengthened their cultural heritage laws and increased efforts to combat looting and illegal export of artifacts. These nations have also pursued the return of Maya treasures held abroad, with varying degrees of success. In 2011, Yale University returned hundreds of artifacts from the site of Machu Picchu to Peru after a lengthy legal dispute. This high-profile case encouraged other Latin American countries to intensify their repatriation efforts for cultural materials held in foreign collections, including Maya artifacts. Museums and collecting institutions have increasingly recognized the ethical complexities surrounding cultural heritage objects, particularly those excavated under colonial conditions or removed without proper archaeological documentation. Many have developed more transparent acquisition policies and have engaged in dialogue with source nations about collaborative research, exhibition, and sometimes repatriation of sensitive materials. For Maya communities themselves, these ancient treasures represent not just archaeological specimens, but connections to ancestral heritage and identity. In Guatemala, Maya cultural revitalization movements have reclaimed elements of ancient practice and symbolism, incorporating them into contemporary spiritual and cultural expressions. Maya intellectuals and activists have advocated for greater indigenous involvement in the management, interpretation, and display of archaeological materials, challenging traditional academic and institutional control over their ancestral heritage. As sleep perhaps begins to embrace you more fully, let's return to the Red Queen and reflect on how her discovery fits within this broader context of Maya archaeology, heritage, and contemporary significance. Unlike many Maya treasures that were removed from their original contexts through colonial appropriation or looting, the Red Queen's tomb was excavated by professional archaeologists from the country where it was found. The artifacts remained in Mexico, where they are preserved and displayed in conditions that balance conservation needs with public accessibility. The Red Queen's discovery in 1994 came at a significant moment in Mexican cultural politics. Just months earlier, on January 1, 1994, the Zapatista uprising had begun in Chiapas, the very state where Palenque is located. This indigenous rebellion focused international attention on the marginalization of Maya peoples in contemporary Mexico and their struggles for land rights, cultural autonomy, and political representation. In this context, the emergence of a powerful female figure from ancient Maya history carried symbolic resonance beyond its archaeological significance. Today, visitors to the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City can view the reconstructed burial of the Red Queen, her jade mask and ornaments displayed in their original arrangement. At Palenque itself, Temple 13 has been stabilized and preserved, allowing visitors to appreciate the architectural context of the tomb, even though the original artifacts and remains have been removed for conservation. This approach balances the need to protect these fragile treasures while making them accessible to both scholars and the general public. For contemporary Maya peoples, figures like the Red Queen represent complex connections to ancestral heritage. Modern Maya communities maintain many cultural traditions with ancient roots, including textile patterns, agricultural practices, religious concepts, and linguistic elements that create continuities across centuries of historical change. At the same time, contemporary Maya identity engages with modern realities, incorporating new influences while maintaining distinctive cultural expressions adapted to present circumstances. As your consciousness perhaps drifts toward the borders of sleep, consider how the Red Queen's story exemplifies the enduring human fascination with connecting to the past. Her tomb remained sealed for 13 centuries, her identity forgotten even as her body rested in its crimson shroud beneath the jungle-covered pyramid. Yet when archaeologists carefully removed the stone lid of her sarcophagus in 1994, they created a new connection across time, allowing her to speak again in her own way, to a world transformed beyond recognition from the one she had known. This connection across time is not merely academic or abstract. It touches something fundamental in human experience, our desire to understand those who came before us, to see our own reflections in their lives and deaths, to find meaning in the traces they left behind. The Red Queen, with her jade mask and cinnabar-coated bones, reminds us that despite vast differences in culture, belief, and historical circumstance, we share with ancient peoples the universal experiences of life and death, love and loss, power and vulnerability. The treasures that accompanied the Red Queen in death, the carefully crafted jade ornaments, the symbolically charged cinnabar, speak to hopes and fears about mortality that transcend cultural boundaries. The Maya belief in a journey after death, requiring proper preparation and symbolic provisions, reflects the universal human struggle to find meaning in the face of inevitable mortality. In the careful attention to funerary ritual, we recognize our shared humanity across the centuries. As sleep perhaps begins to envelop you, carry with you these images of ancient treasures and the remarkable civilization that created them. The Red Queen, in her cinnabar cocoon, surrounded by gleaming jade, the imposing pyramids of Palenque rising above the jungle canopy, the intricate hieroglyphs recording historical events and cosmic cycles, the vibrant polychrome ceramics depicting gods and rulers, each represents a thread in the complex tapestry of Maya civilization, a culture that combines sophisticated artistic expression, scientific knowledge, and spiritual depth in ways that continue to inspire wonder today. In the quiet darkness of night, as your consciousness drifts toward dreams, perhaps you will journey in imagination to these ancient temples and tombs, walking in the footsteps of both the Maya who built them and the archaeologists who later uncovered their secrets. In that imaginative connection across time, you participate in the ongoing conversation between past and present that gives meaning to our understanding of human history and cultural achievement. The story of the Red Queen and her treasures continues to unfold as new research techniques, theoretical perspectives, and discoveries add dimensions to our understanding. Like the jade beads that once adorned her body, each one the product of countless hours of skilled work, each one a small part of a greater whole, these fragments of knowledge gradually accumulate to create a more complete picture of an extraordinary woman and the fascinating civilization to which she belonged. Rest peacefully now, carrying these ancient treasures lightly in your thoughts as you drift toward sleep. Like the Red Queen in her temple chamber, let yourself be embraced by darkness and silence, knowing that even in sleep, the mind continues its quiet work of connecting past and present, weaving dreams from the threads of memory and imagination. In that liminal space between waking and sleeping, between the known and the mysterious, the story of the Red Queen and her Maya world continues to resonate, bridging the centuries that separate her time from our own. As we reach the final chapter of our peaceful exploration of the Red Queen and Maya treasures, let's delve into the world of Maya artistry and the sophisticated techniques that created the magnificent objects found in royal tombs like hers. These artistic traditions represent not just aesthetic achievement, but windows into the Maya worldview, their understanding of themselves and the cosmos they inhabited. Maya art was never simply decorative. It served multiple interconnected purposes: religious, political, commemorative, and instructional. Whether carved in stone, modeled in clay, painted on walls, or crafted from precious jade, Maya artistic expressions operated within a complex symbolic system that communicated on multiple levels simultaneously. For those who could read the visual language, and Maya elites were trained from childhood in this sophisticated literacy, each motif, color, and composition element carried layers of meaning. The jade artifacts found with the Red Queen exemplify this rich visual language. Jade itself, with its cool, smooth surface and range of green hues, symbolically connected to water, vegetation, breath, and life essence in Maya thought. The material's physical properties, its density, translucence, and vibrant color, were understood as manifestations of spiritual qualities, making jade objects not merely valuable possessions but reservoirs of sacred power. The forms given to jade by Maya artisans further enhanced these symbolic associations. The mosaic mask found on the Red Queen's face transformed her features into an idealized divine countenance for her journey through the underworld. The hundreds of beads forming her necklaces, bracelets, and anklets would have created rhythmic visual patterns when arranged in their original sequences, perhaps reflecting cosmic cycles or dynastic lineages through their arrangement, size, and subtle color variations. The jade figurine, placed in her mouth, likely represented a specific deity or ancestor whose protection would guide her through the afterlife. In Maya glyphic writing, jade is associated with breath and speech, making jade ornaments placed near the mouth particularly meaningful as expressions of royal voice and authority continuing beyond death. As you rest comfortably, perhaps feeling the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, imagine the hands that created these exquisite objects. Maya jade working reached its artistic and technical zenith during the classic period when the Red Queen lived. Without metal tools hard enough to carve jade directly, artisans developed remarkably effective techniques using other materials. The initial rough shaping of jade involved percussion flaking, carefully striking the stone to remove unwanted material, a process requiring precise judgment of force and angle to avoid shattering the precious material. Finer shaping employed abrasives like quartz sand, ground jade dust, or crushed obsidian, applied with water to create a cutting slurry. The patient back and forth motion of string saws, cords pulled through this abrasive mixture, could eventually cut through jade, while hollow bone or reed drills with abrasives could create the holes needed for beads. Final polishing required even more patience, using progressively finer abrasives with leather or cloth to create the luminous surface that enhances jade's natural beauty. A single bead might represent days or even weeks of skilled labor, making the hundreds found in royal burials, like the Red Queen's, represent thousands of hours of specialized craftsmanship. These objects were not mass-produced, but created individually by master artisans whose skills were developed through years of training and practice. The organization of craft production in Maya society combined elements of specialization with mystical understanding. Artisans were not mere technicians, but individuals whose work connected them with divine creative forces. The Maya believed that objects contained spiritual essence or animus, with particularly fine creations possessing special power or a sacred quality. The act of creation was understood as a collaboration between human skill and supernatural influence, with artisans sometimes entering altered states of consciousness to receive divine guidance for their work. Royal workshops attached to palaces produced the highest quality objects, with artisans working under direct patronage of rulers who provided materials and support in exchange for exclusive access to their finest creations. Archaeological evidence from sites like Cancun in Guatemala has revealed jade workshops with tools, unfinished pieces, and jade debitage, waste material from carving, giving us insights into the physical settings where these treasures were created. As the night deepens around you and perhaps sleep feels ever closer, let's explore how the Red Queen's treasures connect to broader patterns of elite Maya women's adornment and the role of personal ornamentation in expressing identity, status, and cosmological connections. Maya royal women's appearance was a carefully constructed visual statement about their place in society and the cosmos. Their clothing, jewelry, and body modifications all contributed to a complete aesthetic expression that identified them to others and situated them within the complex Maya social and religious hierarchy. As you continue to rest peacefully, perhaps noticing the comfortable weight of your body against the surface supporting you, let's consider what would have happened to the Red Queen's treasures had her tomb not remained hidden for centuries. What was the fate of Maya royal possessions when they weren't sealed in undiscovered burial chambers? In many ancient societies, precious objects were passed down through generations as heirlooms, accumulating histories and associations that enhanced their value. However, Maya practice often involved removing valued objects from circulation through ritual deposition, deliberately placing them in contexts where they would not be recovered or reused, at least not by human hands. The most complete form of this ritual deposition was tomb placement, like the jade ornaments buried with the Red Queen. By accompanying the deceased into the afterlife, these objects underwent a transformation, becoming part of the spiritual equipment needed for the soul's journey rather than material possessions in the conventional sense. Their value wasn't lost but transferred to a different realm, where they continued to serve their owner in the afterlife while simultaneously honoring them in the memory of the living. Other forms of ritual deposition included offerings placed in caches within buildings, objects thrown into cenotes, natural sinkholes considered entrances to the underworld, and valuable items deliberately broken or killed before placement in significant locations. These practices removed precious materials from ordinary circulation, creating sacralized deposits that connected particular places with ancestral power and divine favor. When Maya cities were abandoned during the Terminal Classic period, roughly 800–900 CE, many valuable possessions likely traveled with their owners to new settlements. Others may have been ritually deposited as part of abandonment ceremonies, intentionally left behind as offerings to the spirits of place or ancestors associated with the sites being left. Some objects were certainly looted in antiquity, either by opportunistic individuals or as part of organized efforts to reclaim valuable materials from abandoned ceremonial centers. The Spanish conquest brought new patterns of appropriation, with conquistadors and colonial officials seizing precious materials from Maya communities. Particularly valued were gold and silver, though these metals were less culturally significant to the Maya than jade. Colonial documents describe the melting down of Maya precious metal objects to create Spanish coins and bullion, erasing their cultural significance and artistic value in favor of their mere material worth. Perhaps most destructive to Maya material culture was the zealous campaign against idolatry led by Spanish priests, particularly Fray Diego de Landa in Yucatan. Yolanda organized the systematic destruction of Maya religious objects, including the burning of countless hieroglyphic books. Only 4 major Maya codices survived this cultural devastation, preserving just fragments of the vast literary and artistic tradition that once existed. Given these historical patterns, the undisturbed preservation of the Red Queen's tomb represents an extraordinary stroke of archaeological fortune. By remaining sealed and undiscovered until modern archaeological methods could properly document and preserve its contents, this burial chamber provides a rare glimpse of Maya royal material culture in its original context, undisturbed by later cultural transformations or destructive appropriation. As the night deepens and perhaps sleep begins to feel imminent, let's reflect on how our understanding of Maya civilization has evolved over time, moving from early misconceptions to increasingly nuanced appreciation of its achievements and complexity. When European explorers first encountered Maya ruins in the 18th and early 19th centuries, they frequently struggled to believe that the indigenous peoples of the region could have created such impressive structures. John Lloyd Stephens, whose 1841 book Incidents of Travel in Central America, Chiapas, and Yucatan introduced many Western readers to Maya sites, was exceptional in correctly attributing these buildings to the ancestors of contemporary Maya peoples rather than to Old World civilizations. Early archaeological approaches to Maya sites often focused on monumental architecture and elite material culture, creating a somewhat one-dimensional picture of Maya society centered on rulers, warfare, and religious ritual. The spectacular contents of royal tombs like the Red Queen's naturally drew attention, but this focus sometimes obscured the lives and experiences of ordinary Maya people who made up the vast majority of the population. More recent archaeological approaches have broadened this perspective, incorporating techniques that illuminate the lives of non-elite Maya. Settlement pattern studies, household archaeology, and analysis of agricultural features like terraces and raised fields have provided insights into how ordinary people lived, worked, and participated in Maya society. Bioarchaeological studies of skeletal remains from commoner burials have revealed information about diet, health, and activity patterns across the social spectrum. The decipherment of Maya hieroglyphic writing beginning in earnest with Yuri Norizov's phonetic approach in the 1950s and accelerating dramatically in the 1970s and 1980s has transformed our understanding of Maya history and culture. Where scholars once believed Maya inscriptions dealt primarily with calendrical and astronomical matters, we now know they recorded dynastic histories, political events, ritual activities, and even personal names and titles of historical individuals. This textual revolution has given voice to the Maya themselves, allowing their written words to complement archaeological evidence in reconstructing their past. Contemporary Maya archaeology increasingly involves collaboration with descendant communities, recognizing that modern Maya peoples have important perspectives to contribute to the interpretation of their ancestral heritage. Indigenous scholars, cultural experts, and community members participate in archaeological projects, museum exhibitions, and educational initiatives, ensuring that Maya voices are included in conversations about their own history and cultural legacy. This collaborative approach represents an important evolution in how archaeological knowledge is produced and shared. Rather than treating Maya civilization as a disappeared culture to be studied objectively from outside, contemporary practice recognizes the living connections between ancient sites and modern communities, the continued relevance of ancestral traditions in contemporary Maya life, and the importance of indigenous perspectives in interpreting the material remains of the past. As your consciousness perhaps drifts toward the borders of sleep, consider how the Red Queen's story exemplifies both the achievements of Maya civilization and the ongoing process of recovering and interpreting its legacy. The exquisite jade artifacts found in her tomb speak to the sophisticated artistry and technical skill of Maya craftspeople. The careful attention to ritual symbolism in her burial, the cinnabar coating, the positioning of offerings, the sacred location within the temple reveals the complex religious concepts that structured Maya understanding of life, death, and cosmic order. The fact that her tomb remained undiscovered for 13 centuries, only to be carefully excavated using modern archaeological methods, symbolizes the long journey of Maya cultural heritage, from florescence to decline, from intentional destruction to careful recovery and preservation. That her remains and treasures now rest in Mexican museums, accessible to both scholars and the public, represents the ongoing effort to balance conservation needs with the sharing of cultural knowledge. The continued mystery surrounding her specific identity, was she Ixtziak B. Ajah, Pakal's wife, or another royal woman entirely, reminds us that archaeological understanding is always incomplete, always subject to revision as new evidence emerges or new analytical approaches are developed. This scientific humility, this willingness to acknowledge the limits of current knowledge, is itself an important aspect of responsible engagement with the past. As sleep perhaps begins to embrace you more fully, carry with you these images of the Red Queen in her cinnabar-dusted tomb, surrounded by gleaming jade treasures, resting beneath the jungle-covered pyramid at Palenque. In your mind's eye, see the careful hands of the artisans who created these exquisite objects, the solemn procession that accompanied the queen to her final resting place, the patient work of the archaeologists who revealed her burial to the modern world 13 centuries later. In these connected moments across time, creation, deposition, discovery, interpretation, we glimpse the ongoing conversation between past and present that gives meaning to archaeological work. The Red Queen's story doesn't end with her death, or even with her discovery. It continues to unfold as new generations encounter her legacy, finding in these ancient treasures reflections of their own questions about beauty, power, mortality, and meaning. The jade mask that once covered her face, the beads that adorned her body, the brilliant red cinnabar that transformed her remains. These tangible objects connect us to the intangible aspects of human experience that transcend time and cultural difference. In our fascination with the Red Queen and her treasures, we recognize our shared humanity with those who lived, created, ruled, and died in the ancient Maya world. As the night embraces you and sleep draws ever nearer, imagine the Red Queen not as a remote archaeological specimen, but as a person who lived, loved, exercised power, made choices within the constraints of her time and place, and ultimately faced the universal human experience of mortality. Though separated by centuries and profound cultural differences, we share with her and all who came before us the fundamental experiences that define our humanity. In that recognition lies the deepest value of exploring the past, not merely to catalog artifacts or reconstruct chronologies, but to expand our understanding of the human experience in all its diversity and commonality. The Red Queen, emerging from her long silence beneath Temple 13 at Palenque, invites us into this deeper engagement with the past, this more profound appreciation of our place in the long human story that continues to unfold. As your consciousness drifts toward dreams, perhaps you will carry something of the Red Queen with you, the crimson dust of her burial, the green gleam of her jade ornaments, the mystery of her identity, the wonder of her rediscovery. Like the Maya themselves, who understood time as both cyclical and linear, perhaps you will find in these ancient treasures something simultaneously distant and immediate, foreign and familiar, lost and found. Sleep well now, allowing yourself to sink gently into rest, knowing that like the Red Queen in her temple chamber, you are held in the embrace of night, part of the eternal rhythm of darkness and light, sleeping and waking, forgetting and remembering that connects all human experience across the centuries. In that peaceful knowledge, in that sense of connection to the vast tapestry of human history, May you find rest and renewal as this story of Maya treasures comes to its quiet conclusion. The Maya believed that dreams were pathways to other realms of existence, doorways through which the soul could commune with ancestors and deities. As you drift toward sleep, perhaps your dreams will carry you to sun-dappled plazas where jade gleams against crimson-painted temples, where the scent of copal incense rises through tropical air, where the distant sounds of shell trumpets and ceramic drums mark the passage of time in a world both utterly different from and fundamentally similar to our own. In that borderland between waking and sleeping, between the known present and the mysterious past, the Red Queen and her Maya world continue their silent conversation with us, a dialogue of artifact and imagination, of scholarly knowledge and human wonder, of archaeological recovery and endless interpretation. It is a conversation that began with her discovery in 1994 and continues with each person who encounters her story, each mind that contemplates the meaning of her cinnabar-dusted remains and jade treasures. Rest now in the gentle knowledge that this conversation across time will continue beyond this night, beyond our individual lives, part of humanity's ongoing effort to understand its past and through that understanding to more fully comprehend its present and imagine its future. The Red Queen, anonymous yet eloquent in her silent testimony, has become part of our collective heritage, a thread in the intricate fabric that connects all human experience across the boundaries of time, culture, and mortality. May this peaceful exploration of ancient mysteries guide you toward restful sleep and perhaps inspire dreams, as richly colored as Maya art, as deeply meaningful as their sacred symbols, as enduring as the stone temples that continue to stand watch over the tropical forests of their homeland.